Now you can take control of your game right now from your smartphone, tablet, or desktop. Just go to www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. That's www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. Your game will thank you for it. Welcome to Breaking Par with Bernard Sheridan, the golf instruction podcast that helps you take control of your game. Now, here's your host, the founder of Par Breakers Golf Academy and certified Golf Channel Swing Fix instructor, Bernard Sheridan.
Dom, thanks so much for coming to Breaking Par and being a guest today. It's great to have you with us and to get an opportunity to depart your knowledge to the Par Nation group here.
I appreciate the invitation. I really look forward to our talk today. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. So you're a local guy as far as I know, at least to me. I've known you for quite a while now, and I've seen you climb quickly up the ladder, which is wonderful to see someone who you know who's local get that recognition pretty quickly. At least it seemed pretty quickly to me. It probably really wasn't. You know that as we get older, time just flies by. So as we were talking a little bit earlier before we went on the air, and but you're top 100 instructor now, and have been for quite a while, and very well respected in the Philadelphia area. So why don't you just let our guests know, or our guests, I want to say our listeners know, where you're located, what club you teach out of, and a little bit of information about how you ended up there.
Yeah, so I was originally hired as the director of instruction at Jericho National Golf Club, where the club hosted a golf academy for a few years. I was back in '99, and for 2 years I ran the golf academy here. And then after a couple seasons, we decided that it would be better off to change up the ownership structure, where it became my business, and I became a tenant here at the club. Since then, DiJulia Golf has been around, I guess, since 2001. And so I've been in the same location for quite some time. It's a great place to be. It's a fantastic golf course, a great membership, and we enjoy doing what we do here.
It's a beautiful area over there, too. I mean, that whole area in Bucks County is so pretty. And then I know that the golf course is beautiful, too. I mean, that whole locale is just really great. And it seems like it's worked to your benefit. You've been there for quite a while now, so it has definitely worked out. So give us an insight into some of the people that you're teaching over there.
I apologize. I interrupted you there. Say that again.
Give us some insight into some of the people that you're working with over there at Jericho National.
So our school mostly attracts, we kind of, when you go on our website and take a look at us, we kind of help you understand your journey by saying that golfers fall into generally three categories. There are competitive players who are looking to be successful in competition. There are committed players who are passionate about their game, not necessarily competing, but committed means that they're putting in effort to improve. That's how we kind of describe committed. And then we also have recreational golfers who just want to go out there and have fun, and they may, once in a while do something to improve, but they're not very serious about it. So by definition, anyone watching our discussion today, we would say is a committed golfer. If you're taking the time to listen to what, some experts have to say, then you're clearly serious about wanting to learn more about yourself and your game and the game. So we already have a captive audience here, which is fun to talk to.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, and the bulk of our audience, they listen on a regular basis, and the reason why is because we have great instructors like you as guests to depart their insight on these players, and they're real interested. And so you're right, they're definitely a lot more committed. As a percentage wise, with the guys and gals that you're working with, is that more of the percentage that you work with?
Yeah, so our school, we definitely are 90% committed and competitive. So the committed golfers are the dad who, has a job and is raising his kids, but he just loves the game and it's his therapy, if you want to call that, his own journey and relationship with golf. And we have, men, women, young, old. We just gave a parent presentation the other day, and I had a picture of a young 4-year-old that I had the opportunity to meet with, and kind of contrasted the picture of when he was 4, now he's 16, and kind of showed, just visually how neat it's been to watch his progress. And I also talked about a woman who I had the opportunity to work with, who is no longer with us, who was the Pennsylvania Super Senior State Champ several times. I think she had won it 4 out of 8 years she won it, and she was runner-up 2 of the other times. So I really enjoy the diversity of working with people from young, old, men, women. We do have most of it, so 90% are committed or competitive, and then I would say that 60 to 70% are young, are the juniors. So most of who we get are the young players who are working hard, trying to make their high school team, or they're already on track to make their high school team, and they're trying to become committed. They're trying to take that journey in competitive junior golf to the next level and make a college team, or at least have a nice, fun junior career. So we pretty much work with dedicated students, and a lot of them are the younger players. So we have right now we have 4 of the top 10 junior golfers in PA. So it's been quite a privilege, really, to have the opportunity to have the parents trust us and the kids dedicated, and we've kind of raised these guys up and watched them grow, and that's kind of fun, a neat little fact about our school at this time. We're pretty excited about it.
That's wonderful. So a lot of these juniors that you're working with, what are a lot of the things that you work with? Do you work with them in a group format? Is most of the stuff that you do one-on-one? How is your program set up for those type players?
Yeah, so we definitely have, the history of the school is definitely 95% one-on-one, and as we are moving and evolving, we are integrating group programming where when there's some golf IQ, things that every golfer should know. One of them I'm very passionate about is ball flight. We can definitely do group programs and have the group kind of, by asking questions of different people and having different people respond, get the group talking. It helps everybody get on the same wavelength and understand ball flight. And that's just understanding, what do you have to make the club do to the ball to make the ball fly a certain way. It's a really important topic that I encourage golfers to learn about. So we like to do that in a group setting. We're big on process. We think that the way you play golf is by running a process. It's the elite golfers get to their ball and they know exactly what to do. They know how much attention to give to the lie of the ball. There's a minimum, but there's also a maximum. You don't want to get obsessed with it. And you got to calculate the wind, and you got to calculate the yardage, and just a strategy, etc. And everybody knows about a pre-shot routine, that you have to have a certain way of getting set to the ball. But what's your routine going to be? Why would you walk to the ball with the club in your right hand versus your left hand? When are you going to establish your posture and your ball position, and how? What's your background fundamentally as to are we fighting alignment issues, or are we fighting grip issues? And we'll design your pre-shot routine around that. So process is the whole picture of putting the plan it, do it, and review it together into this big package. So we like to run schools where you can kind of get in the introduction into, hey, here's the background, here's what process is, here's what we do here at our school. We help our players become experts at their own process. And you start by just understanding that each kind of shot has its own process, and that your job is, we call it, define and refine. You have to define your process, and over time you refine it so it's truly yours, and it accomplishes 2 things. It accomplishes the requirements of the game of golf, but it also accomplishes whatever you need. What do you need to do for yourself? Again, are you a guy who fights his grip? Are you a guy who fights being overly aggressive in your strategy? Are you someone who's so anxious that you're not calm in the present tense, and we have to put something in your process to calm you down? So there are a couple of things we like to do in a group setting.
And that's a great way, and I mean that's some great wisdom there that you just imparted to our listeners, is that process and being able to repeat that process consistently, and that it's your process, not maybe somebody else's. And I think a lot of people get tied up into trying to do things that are like somebody else, or maybe someone they're trying to emulate, that might not really be perfect for them, to get them in their nice little comfort zone and to get them consistent doing the same type things all the time. I also like what you mentioned in process is the sequence of the way these guys and gals make these things happen. I found that with some of my students, that's one of the biggest problems is that they get their sequencing incorrect. And now they have a difficult time being consistent, or maybe hitting their fundamentals correctly. Like you said, maybe their grip or maybe their shoulders are open or things like that. So I think that when you say process and the things that you just spoke about, it's really good for all our listeners out there to try to understand that and try to find someone like yourself who's going to help them find the best sequencing of process to get them to do their best performance consistently. That's a big part of, I think, why you're successful.
Yeah, I think two things that you just said that are important to me. One is that it has to be yours. So if we look on, Rory's number one right now. So if we look at what he does in his putting, he doesn't take practice strokes. And that works for him. And what that allows him to do with his level of experience and expertise, it lets him to putt freely. He is able to, kind of like a basketball player, catch, look, and shoot. It allows him to do that. And he has enough experience and he has enough skill that it works for him. Take someone with less experience and less skill, and that's not going to work. They need the practice strokes to kind of connect, to dial in and say, oh, the hole's right there. It's not 20 feet away, it's 19 feet away. And that's different a little bit. And I just kind of have to, be aware of what it's going to feel like to make my ball go 19 feet. And it's still athletic. So the goal's the same for both players. We want the player to perform from their athletic self, from their trusting, feeling self, not, I'm going to make a 1 foot backswing and a 1 foot follow through. That will never work. It has to be athletic. But how do you get there? So there's an example of two totally different solutions that I would endorse for different players. One player, and how we do it is real simple. We do skills testing. Let's test you without practice strokes. Let's test you with the practice strokes. Let's do enough diversity in the testing where we're both convinced that this is the best solution for you for now. So that's one thing that I think is a big deal that you kind of hit on. It really does have to be personalized because not everybody's at the same stage in development. And then the other thing you hit on is sequence is huge. I can't tell you just a real simple one. I really enjoy TrackMan's Test Center. TrackMan's Test Center gives us the opportunity to set targets. So I'll have my players will warm up while they're waiting for me to finish my prior lesson. I'll get to them and just kind of confirm. You hitting them okay? You warm up. You're warmed up. Yep, good. Okay, so now I do a quick test center test, and this might be 12 to 20 shots, where I'll select a target. Hit it 100 yards, hit it 140 yards, hit it 120 yards, hit it 180 yards, and hit a driver. So that would be a 20. 5 targets would be a 20 ball test, let's say. And they have to actually play golf. They have to calculate the wind. They have to notice changes in the wind. They have to aim. So I'm watching them actually play golf. And I can't tell you how many times the player, after the fact, when we look at where they fell short, they'll say, well, you said 120 yards. And I said, yeah, your ball had to end 120 yards. But to hit it 120 yards in the wind with this intensity, you had to hit it 100. Your job is to figure out how much. Was it 135, 137, 140? That was the purpose of this test. Let's try again.
Right.
Sequence is, it's not learn the yardage, grab a club, and then consider the wind. It's learn the yardage, adjust for all of the elements, including the wind, and then select the club. I can't tell you how many players are getting that one backwards. So sequence in so many ways is critical to performing at your best.
I totally agree. I mean, I think that I'm constantly going over sequence with my students, and I'm constantly going over sequence in the way that they get their pre-shot routine down, and are they doing it the exact same way every single time? Because if they don't, I think what happens is they can't pay attention to the little things that really can throw the whole works off, and then they don't really understand when the shot is poor what they did wrong. At least if they stay in, like we just said, in their sequence, if they do something wrong, it's easier for them to be their own coach when you and I, their coach, is not around. And they're out on the golf course and playing their round, and they make these same mistakes, and they go, oh, this is why I did it. and then they think about what you told them on the lesson tee, where I know a lot of my students will say, I hear your voice in the back of my head when I'm like, well, that's a good thing. It might be a good thing. I said, it might not be a good thing. I said, but at least if you hear it, then it means that you're remembering what we talked about, and you're putting that into the equation, as long as you don't overthink it too. And now, do you find that especially with, even though you're dealing with better players, that they still have some process where they're overthinking, or they're because of that they lose confidence and don't play as well?
Well, I think if we look at two of my favorite books as far as understanding what are we really trying to do with those players that are the advanced players, and we help players of all abilities. Some of the players who are, as accomplished as they are, a woman who's one of the best players in the Golf Association of Philadelphia right now, I met her as a 20 handicap, and now she's a +1 handicap. So they're better players over time.
Sure.
They come to us as better players.
Yeah.
So back to what you were getting at, I think that it takes time to develop expertise. The books I was alluding to, the Talent Code and Outliers are two books that talk about what does it take time to develop expertise. And it's time. It's 10,000 hours is one of the kind of the buzzwords that I'm sure some of your viewers have run into.
Sure.
But it's 10,000 hours of deliberate, purposeful practice. So I understand wherever I am with a given player, they're in the process. They're making progress with becoming an expert at their own process. So we take whatever they're doing now, say, great, I really like these 4 or 5 elements that you're doing. We're going to keep those in place. Here's 2 blind spots that you weren't doing. You didn't routinely look at the lie of the ball. And boy, the lie of the ball really indicates what you can do to the shot and how the ball is going to fly. So we need to shore up that blind spot. Never again are you going to walk to a ball without, looking at the lie of the ball and considering how might this affect the shot. So we'll shore up some blind spots. And then once a player has kind of been with us for a while and they really have had the opportunity to, for the most part, clean up and identify, they've defined and refined their process, over time, there's still this idea of intensity management, meaning, am I doing it? Am I too obsessed with it? Am I working too hard at it, or am I working not hard enough at it? And so expert play is that the best players have not only identified their process and their skill at doing it, but they also know how precise does my grip need to be, and the exact positioning of the club face within my hands. How precise do I need to be with my shoulder alignment? Can I just kind of casually shake it out and I'm there? Or do I really need to deliberately place myself? And that's that's a very alive process that players have to kind of go through. And I guess the way we always do it is, at any given time, you get 1 or 2 things you can bring with you. So, if your shoulder alignment's your weak link, well, then for the next 5 rounds of golf, you're going to go out there and we're going to have you slow down your process for a moment and really make sure that your shoulders are positioned the way you want. And then, after those 5 rounds of golf, something else will be off. And maybe we'll have you paying attention to your trail hand grip again, because that, it just keeps wanting to slide in one direction or the other. That's kind of how we go about it.
Yeah, so I mean, golf is a constant ongoing process. I think that's also what makes it such an awesome game, is because you can never go like, okay, I got to the end and I got it now, because it turns around on you, because there's so many other little things that can happen, and there's so many variables, like you mentioned, of different lies and things like that. All those things come into play. So out of all the people that I know, and I know a lot of people, okay, you're one of the guys who has more knowledge in all different areas and have gotten more certifications than anybody in the circle that we run in or know. And I think that's part of the reason why you can be able to disseminate all these different things to your students. I'm way behind you in that, and trying to catch up, and always have been. Because you started that process a lot earlier than I did when it came to, and what I mean by that is, biomechanic training, and maybe golf machine training and all these different types of information from different outlooks on the golf swing, going and getting trained, finding that knowledge, seeing how it fits in to be able to help any type of player that you run across. How do you think that has really made a huge difference in what you do and in your ability to help other students?
Well, there's no question that in any, so yeah, I've had some nice, this is year 9 and now 10. The golf magazine top 100, I'll be in for years 9 in 2015 and 16. It's a 2-year cycle, so that's great. But there's being in that organization, I get to hang out with the other guys who are in the top 100, and we're all thirsty. Nobody's kind of gotten to that point without being very thirsty to learn more. And it's just a great time to teach golf because there are engineers and doctors and physicists all giving their contribution to golf. They're saying, hey guys, do you golf instructors really know that this is how the joints really work? Do you guys know what really happens and impact the physics of the way a ball comes off a golf club? And as they sometimes they approach us, sometimes we approach them, and you take technology, how far technology's come. It is a great time to teach golf and to learn more about coaching players because there's a lot of people putting their fingerprint on it and helping us as coaches become better. To me, there's 4 things that are my critical, I think that those of us who are, going to go help players, I think there's 4 things we really need to be really well educated in. I had mentioned ball flight earlier because we're trying to help players make a ball fly through the air to a target. So we better, help our players really learn how to self-diagnose, frankly, with that. I just had a phone call with a young man who's down in Florida this morning and just, rehashing, okay, what does this mean? We saw the ball start one way and then it curved a different way. How can we interpret that? And so I think players have to do that. So ball flight, number 1. Number 2, biomechanics. We all have different bodies. We've observed the tour for years, right? How the different players have different looking swings. There's no 2 players with the same swing ever. So if players can play at the highest level with different moves, then I think our job is to educate our players to say, hey, I'm going to help you find your swing, and let's be clear, you need to have your swing. We're not going to copy anybody's. We're going to help you identify yours. And if your swing has characteristics similar to a player that we know and we're familiar with, yeah, I'll show you some video footage of what that player does, but we're not copying. It's just that you have the same, your shoulder joint works the same as theirs kind of thing. So we have ball flight, we have biomechanics. Huge is motor learning. The player goes out, simple, what is motor learning? The player goes and takes a lesson, and it's a great lesson. They're hitting the ball great, and they go out 2 days later and play golf, and they can't reproduce that feel at all. Well, the bottom line is they haven't practiced in a way that was going to transfer to the golf course. The lesson was, let's say, accurate and successful, but that doesn't mean that you're ready to take it to the course. So what are the rules of motor learning? And so our job then becomes as coaches to teach players how to practice so that their new upgrades, any upgrade, whether it be a shoulder alignment or a backswing move or a downswing move, that we have to train so that can be a habit, so it happens without a lot of thought. And then the final one is playing knowledge, where there's just a lot of golf IQ that you have to learn. The simple little phrase is when it's breezy, swing easy. That hints to the fact that when you try and hit the ball into the wind, the harder you swing, the further the ball shoots up in the air and the shorter it lands. So just helping our players develop the golf IQ that you and I as golf professionals have had the luxury of learning. We have to think, all right, how am I going to pass that on to players? And so the 4 just to review, because I think they're big. I think if you're players, I think need to know this, that I need to become as a player, if I want to be serious about my game, I need to learn about these 4 things: ball flight, motor learning, biomechanics, and also playing knowledge.
I totally agree with all that. And a lot of those things I try to impart to my players too, and that's part of the reason why I've taken different certification courses so that I can learn more about that and then pass that knowledge on to my students, which you have done also. And I think too that now that technology, we have the technology, and it's still growing tremendously, exponentially. So we still have that technology, but we have so much more technology now than we did, let's say, 10 years ago. And how can we use it to help players and not hinder them? And I think that, too, sometimes in certain circles, and we won't mention any names, I think we all know who they are, that sometimes they take that information and they think that it's going to ruin some elite players. But I'm not sure whether that's really what's the truth about what's happening. And I don't think that the people who I think there's more instructors out there who are knowledgeable about technology who are trying to use it in the correct way, like you are. You're using it to assess a certain situation to make sure that the player is doing exactly what's best for them and not trying to do something that's different or that's not really meant for them to do. And but I think that lately it's been in the past, I guess, since Tiger has gone with Chris Como, and he's not doing too well, that it's been getting a bad rap by some people in the media and things like that. But I think we're going to see that it's going to change, and I think that overall, when they're not looking at some of these other players who are actually doing pretty well, who are using some of these things too. It's just that maybe they're not getting the kind of coverage that Tiger gets. Nobody gets the coverage that Tiger gets, that's for sure. But I think that it's it goes a lot deeper with him than just because he's working with Chris, and Chris is saying, okay, biomechanics, we figured your biomechanics out, so this is what you have to do. Now all of a sudden he can't chip. So I mean that has nothing to do with it, I don't think. I think that he probably just has chipping yips. I know that I just read an article that Hank Haney put out that said that that's what his problem is, that he has chipping yips. But nobody probably really knows this for sure except for Tiger. But I think that if we use this information in the correct way, which I think you do, because that's why you have 4 juniors in the area that are in the top 10, and then other players, like you mentioned, that senior player. I'm sure that biomechanics came into play with her at some point. And I would say is that something that you do an assessment on every single player that you deal with? I know that I do. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'll hit back of your comment with Tiger. To me, in all fairness to any teacher-coach relationship, players come to you with a history. So what happens? How are you helping a player in the first few months of your relationship? That doesn't tell any part of the story as to what's going to happen here.
No.
I am a firm believer that Tiger's chipping issues and challenges right now are definitely to do with his back, in that he's not moving the same way that he used to. He's staying over in his posture longer. The ground's in the way. He's just not clearing his body the way he used to. And I believe it's a functional thing that's part of the healing process. I think it has nothing to do with technique in the sense of he needs to learn more about how to use a golf club. My gosh, the guy's a magician.
Who the heck doesn't know more than Tiger Woods how to use a golf club? I mean, really, let's face it.
It's changed.
Yeah.
He's simply changed, and he's relearning. And I think he and Chris need to just be patient as he kind of reacclimates to the hey, this is how my body moves now, and it might have to feel a little different to me, or I just have to continue with the healing process longer so that my old way works. My old way isn't working anymore. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see how it goes. But back to the assessment. Mike Adams, I don't know if you've had him on your show yet, but might be a good guy to call.
Yeah, I'm actually, I just spoke to Mike last week, and he's looking at his schedule and trying to find a time that he'll be able to appear. I actually asked him when I met him because I ran into him at the PGA show. He was actually up on the stage, and I was just coming in. I just missed his whole thing that he talked about. I was like, darn it, because I always love to hear Mike talk, and he's such a great guy. And then as he stepped down, I said, hey, Mike, how are you? And he said, Bernie, what's up? And and I said, look, I got this podcast. I really would like you to be a guest. And he's like, yeah, absolutely. You know my email. Contact me. So I actually did that earlier this week, and he said he's going to get back to me. But he's going to definitely be on the show, yes.
Great. So I definitely encourage your viewers, your listeners, to look out for that one in particular on the biomechanics, because Mike, there's 3 gentlemen. Mike has partnered with E.A. Tischler, who's out on the West Coast, and Dr. David Wright, also on the West Coast. And these 3 guys were doing their own research and work separately. Dr. Jim Suddy, ironically from Chicago in the middle of the country, kind of connected them, say, hey, you guys are, I'm listening to each of you, and it sounds like you're learning some similar things. You should talk. They did talk, and son of a gun, they've now put together a program, and they're disseminating it, and I just think they're doing a wonderful service to golf instructors by making themselves available to us. Their support is fantastic. And it's just great for golf. They've come up with the most practical way to use biomechanical knowledge to help a golfer quickly. You don't have to get hooked up. You don't have to get x-rays and MRIs. You don't have to get hooked up to anything fancy. In a 5-minute screen, I could be in an airport, do a screen on somebody, and I could tell them their grip position, the ideal grip position for somebody while I'm sitting, in a seat waiting at an airport. So the way I do it with my players when I meet someone new is I'll go through the interview, my normal interview, tell me what you played, tell me your injuries, what other sports did you play, etc. So I do a very thorough interview so I get to know the person a little bit. Then I do the biomechanic assessment so I know the way their body will move best. Then I watch them swing and I do the comparison. Hey, in what ways are you cooperating with your body, and in what ways are you contradicting your body, probably on purpose, by the way. Probably, I know I'm supposed to do this because, I don't know, a book said it, because Tiger Woods does it. So a lot of times we find that players kind of are violating their own swings on purpose. And the big thing is they definitely, until now, had no way of learning the fundamentals for their swing. Everybody's fundamentals are going to be different. Grips, there are a grip that's turned way to the left and a grip that's turned way to the right would be correct, just for different players. Foot position. Some people need to have their feet square. Some people need to have both feet flared. Some people need to have their left foot flared. Foot flare affects your ability to turn in either direction. So are we trying to encourage you turning more, or are we trying to stop you from turning because you turn too much? That depends on your body and your swing style. So simple fundamentals, things that are really easy to do. Learn what your ball position is going to be. Learn your stance width. Learn your foot flares. These things unbelievably affect your golf swing. So we can get a lot of work done pretty quickly by helping players know, hey, let's assess your body. Let's see what you're doing. Players generally are cooperating for the most part with their body. There's just a couple of critical things where if someone's struggling, they're making one or two kind of death moves. Like, oh boy, that grip won't work with that swing. And that's where we come in and help them out.
Yeah, I think that since I've taken that course with Mike Adams and E.A. Tischler and started to apply it with my students, it's really sped up the learning curve. It's really made it a lot easier for me as an instructor to get to the root of the problem quicker, as opposed to trying to guess what it is through watching them hit balls and doing all that. I can right away get them to get their body to function more the way it's supposed to in a shorter period of time. So we're running out of time. I wish we could talk longer. Unfortunately, we can't. And maybe we can have you on again in the future, because you have such great information to give our audience, and I would love to be able to talk to you for a longer period of time. There's sometimes I get a chance to talk to guys for an hour. Today we're kind of short on time because of technical difficulties that we ran into. But really, before we leave, there's just a couple of things that I want you to partake to our audience and say, here's the best way to get in touch with you. And how can they do that? Via email or your website, or definitely not Skype, because we had some problems with that earlier. But right, but any of those ways. What's the best way for them to get in touch with you? And if they're outside of the area, to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we have our website is DiJulia Golf, DiJulia, DiJuliaGolf.com. So we have our information up there for sure. There's a link on the website to send an email, no question. The phone number's all on there. So the best thing is to just hop online, whether you're on your computer or your phone, and let us know what you're thinking. If you have any questions. I'm very fortunate to have a managing partner who knows unbelievably well what we do, and you would be a first contact by calling and speaking with her. Her name's Ann. You'd be shocked at the depth of her knowledge. She's been with us for quite some time. So an initial contact, you probably get your questions answered. If you have further questions for either Mark or myself, we'll be happy to get back to you and help you understand what we do. And whether you're local or not. If you're not local, as you said, all these certifications that we've been out there, myself and the other instructor, Mark Walter, his name is, we've been to all these programs, so we kind of know what are the most critical and important certifications for an instructor to have, where if you simply go to this course a couple of times, level 1, level 2, level 3, then you have really received some very substantial information and you're empowered as an instructor. So long story short, if you're not from the area, reach out and we'll help you find someone from the area who has the training that we think is really important. So we'll be happy to help your players out, whether they're local or not.
That's great, Dom. So thanks so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know that you're a very busy guy, and congratulations and continued success. And one of the nicest guys in the business for sure. And it was great to have you here. So what we always say before we leave is, until we meet again, try to keep it in the short grass.
Until we meet again. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, take care, Dom.
Now you can take control of your game right now from your smartphone, tablet, or desktop. Just go to www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. That's www.parbreakers.com/e-learning. Your game will thank you for it.